In 1815, a single battle decided the fate of Europe. But here's what nobody tells you. Napoleon wasn't defeated by Wellington alone. He was defeated by an empire that fought with gold, ships, and a strategy so brilliant it changed warfare forever. This is the untold story of how the British Empire took down the world's greatest military genius, not just on the battlefield, but in the shadows of finance, diplomacy, and economic warfare. By 1805, Napoleon Bonaparte controlled more of Europe than anyone since the Roman Empire. From the Atlantic to the Russian border, his Grande Armée was undefeated. Britain stood alone. Here's the problem. Napoleon had 400,000 battle-hardened veterans. Britain had money and ships. Lots of ships. The British strategy was revolutionary. Historian A.T. Mahan put it perfectly. Those far-distant, storm-beaten ships, upon which the Grande Armée never looked, stood between it and the domination of the world. Britain couldn't beat Napoleon on land, yet, so they chose the one battlefield where they were unbeatable, the sea. And they committed to a strategy that would strangle France without firing a shot at the emperor himself. October 21st, 1805. Off the coast of Spain, 33 British ships of the line faced 41 French and Spanish vessels. Napoleon had ordered his admirals to break the blockade, clear the channel, and pave the way for invasion of England. Admiral Horatio Nelson was already a legend. Wounded multiple times, missing an eye and an arm, he was Britain's greatest weapon. His strategy was insane. Instead of forming a traditional battle line, he split his fleet into two columns and drove straight at the enemy's center. This wasn't just bravery, it was calculated risk. By breaking the enemy formation, Nelson turned a superior enemy fleet into chaos. The battle lasted 5 hours. The French and Spanish lost 22 ships. The British lost none. But there was a cost. At the height of victory, a French sniper shot Nelson through the spine. He died knowing he'd won. His last words, "Thank God I have done my duty." Trafalgar didn't just save Britain from invasion. It gave Britain something priceless, absolute control of the oceans for the next century. And that control became the foundation of everything that followed. With the seas secured, Britain needed to fight Napoleon on land. But where? The answer came from an unlikely place, the Iberian Peninsula. In 1808, Napoleon invaded Spain and Portugal, expecting easy victories. He got a quagmire. Enter Arthur Wellesley, a general who had learned his craft in India. He understood something Napoleon didn't. You don't need to win spectacular battles to win wars. You need to win strategically. Wellington's strategy was defensive perfection. He chose battlefields where Napoleon's numerical advantage meant nothing. He built supply lines that could sustain his army indefinitely. And he created something that would become legendary, the lines of Torres Vedras. These were 55 miles of secret fortifications north of Lisbon, so massive that not even the British government knew about them. When French Marshal Massena finally cornered Wellington in 1810, he found an impregnable barrier. Massena lost 25,000 men to starvation and desertion. Wellington lost almost nothing. This was the new British way of war: economic, patient, devastating. While Napoleon bled gold and men in Spain, Britain bled him dry. But the real war wasn't being fought with cannons. It was being fought with banknotes. Britain had something no continental power possessed: the world's first industrial economy and a financial system that could borrow virtually unlimited money. Prime Minister William Pitt the Younger had reformed Britain's finances in the 1780s. When war came in 1793, Britain could sustain military spending that would have bankrupted any other nation. By 1815, the national debt reached 240% of GDP, the equivalent of trillions today, and Britain kept borrowing. Here's where it gets brilliant. Britain didn't just fund its own war effort, it funded everyone else's. Between 1793 and 1815, Britain paid out £65 million in subsidies to allies. That's roughly $6 billion in today's money. Russia got millions to keep its massive armies in the field. Prussia got subsidies to rebuild after devastating defeats. Even Sweden got paid to join the fight. Britain was essentially outsourcing the land war, paying others to bleed, while its own troops fought in the colonies and Spain. Napoleon called Britain a nation of shopkeepers as an insult, but those shopkeepers built a war machine that outspent and outlasted his empire. The Continental system, Napoleon's attempt to blockade Britain economically, failed because Britain controlled the seas and found new markets in the Americas and Asia. In 1814, Napoleon was defeated and exiled to Elba, but he escaped. When he landed in France, the army sent to stop him instead joined him. The 100 Days had begun, and Britain had to finish what it started. Wellington was now the British ambassador to France. He had to assemble a coalition army in weeks. Dutch, Belgian, German, British troops, all under his command. Meanwhile, the Prussians, under Blücher, were marching to join him. June 18, 1815, the Battle of Waterloo. Napoleon had 72,000 men. Wellington had 68,000, mostly inexperienced troops. For hours, the French threw everything they had at Wellington's defensive line. The British infantry, standing in squares, took devastating casualties but held. Napoleon's elite Imperial Guard made their final assault up the ridge. Wellington watched, cool as ice. At the perfect moment, he unleashed his hidden reserves. The Guard broke. The French army collapsed. Blücher's Prussians arrived at the decisive moment. It was, as Wellington later said, a close-run thing, but it was definitive. Napoleon was finished. But Britain wasn't done. At the Congress of Vienna, Foreign Secretary Lord Castlereagh engineered a peace that would last. The Concert of Europe, a system where great powers consulted regularly, prevented major wars for decades. Britain got strategic territories: Malta, Ceylon, South Africa, Singapore, foundations of a global empire. Britain also ensured France wasn't destroyed, just contained. A harsh peace would have created future enemies. Castlereagh understood that stability served British interests better than vengeance. So how did Britain defeat Napoleon? Not through single battles, though Trafalgar and Waterloo matter. Not through genius alone, though Nelson and Wellington were brilliant. Britain won through system. Naval supremacy that strangled French trade. Economic power that funded allies to fight Britain's land battles. Strategic patience that waited for the perfect moment to strike. And diplomatic skill that built a lasting peace. The British Empire didn't just defeat Napoleon. It created the template for how maritime powers defeat continental hegemons. Blockade, subsidize allies, fight on the periphery, and wait for your enemy to exhaust themselves. Napoleon died in exile, wondering how an island nation with a fraction of his resources had destroyed him. The answer was simple. Britain fought smarter, not just harder. And in doing so, they didn't just win a war, they built the greatest empire the world had ever seen. The Napoleonic Wars proved that in the modern world, sea power, finance, and coalition building beat even the greatest military genius. It's a lesson that still shapes geopolitics today. For more stories like this, please like and subscribe and turn on your post notification.